Hello everyone. You are in the InStyle Knitting Studio. Today, we will knit a hat using a 1x1 rib stitch with crossed stitches. As you can see, I knitted two hats. One has a cuff and an elongated crown for women, and the other is a men's hat without a cuff. This rib stitch consists of crossed knit stitches and regular purl stitches. Therefore, the front side of the pattern appears with clear ridges, while the reverse side has the usual 1x1 rib. The crown here is cross-shaped. The hat is universal. It suits both guys and girls. In the workshop, we will knit the men's hat without a cuff. But as we go along, I will explain how I knitted the women's version and discuss all the details regarding the cuff and the elongated crown. So you can knit any model you like. Well then, let's grab the needles and start knitting. I will use Slonim half wool yarn. I have it in 4 strands. This means I will be knitting with 3 strands, pulling 2 strands from one ball, from inside and outside, and one from the second ball on the outside. So in total, I will be knitting with 12 thin strands. I will be using number 3 needles on a short cable. I have it on a cord. I will also need similar number 3 needles on a long cable to close the crown. As it will be uncomfortable to knit on the short one later, a hook of a similar size, a blunt tip needle, markers, a measuring tape. A notebook with a pen for calculations will also be needed. You might need a row counter and a calculator. Before we start knitting, we always knit a sample. Here is mine, a small one. I cast on 30 stitches and knitted a few rows. I hope I guessed the number of stitches correctly in my calculations. Of course, it's better to knit a larger sample. We wash it, dry it, and then calculate our knitting gauge. How to do all this, I won't go into detail right now. I hope everyone knows. If someone does not, there is a link above to my lesson where I explain in detail how to calculate your knitting gauge and how to find out how many stitches to cast on. I will be knitting for a head circumference of 56 centimeters. And then, I wrote down the calculations for my knitting gauge. As I mentioned, all of this is included in the lesson. Also, all the necessary links can be found below this video. So, I calculated that I have 2 stitches in 1 centimeter. Therefore, I take the head circumference of 56 centimeters, I multiply by 2 stitches, the number of stitches in 1 centimeter, and I get 112 stitches. That means I need to cast on 112 stitches. But here we check our obtained number. Here, I schematically drew the hat as if viewed from above, and the total number of stitches should be 112, according to my calculations. That means I will have 4 seams on the hat. You can use 6, but I will have 4. Here, 1, 2, 3, 4. 3 stitches for each seam, a little stripe, and they will connect right here at the crown. So there will be a cross-shaped top, the connection. Therefore, we allocate 3 stitches for each seam. I will show this more clearly on this hat. Here is the crown, and you can see little seams that stand out. And they all meet in the center. 4 seams, a cross-shaped crown. You can use 6 seams. After that, we take 3 stitches and multiply by 4 seams. This gives us 12 stitches. Next, we subtract these 12 stitches from the total. We get 100 stitches. We will divide these 100 stitches into 4 parts. Why 4? Because we have 4 of these parts from one seam to another. This is the first part, second, third, fourth. We divide it into 4 parts, getting 25 stitches for each part. And this number must always be odd. Whole and odd, everything matches for me. Sometimes here, if there's a different number of stitches, it can yield some other number, say 26. That is already incorrect. The pattern won't align later. Therefore, there must always be an odd number here if you get an even or some fractional number. You need to adjust this number of stitches a bit. Take a couple of stitches more or less to ensure you get an odd number here. In this case, your pattern will match when you are knitting the crown. I calculate this if you are taking 3 stitches. This means everything is good for me. I won't add or remove from this number. Therefore, I will cast on 112 stitches on one needle, plus 1 stitch to join the knitting into a circle. I cast on in the usual universal way. A link will also be under the video. We have cast on. Let's check that our stitches haven't twisted here. And now we join our knitting into a circle. As always, with the right needle. We pick up the first cast on stitch. Transfer it to the right needle, then with the left needle, we pick up the last stitch we cast on and place it over the transferred first. We remove it with the left needle. We tighten the yarn and return the obtained stitch to the left needle. It turns out we have made a decrease. And now this stitch, which we added, is gone. There are 112 stitches left on the needles. And now we can knit in the round. If you want to knit a similar hat with a cuff, I will tell you how I knitted it. So, I knitted this hat for a head circumference of 54 to 55 centimeters and cast on 96 stitches, using needles number 375. After I cast on the stitches, I cast on 96 plus 1, then joined the knitting in a circle like this, leaving 96 stitches, and since my hat has a cuff, I turned the knitting. I did this so that this braid would be on the front side. That is, if you have a hat with a cuff, after joining the knitting, you turn the knitting and knit in the opposite direction. I turned the knitting, so I started to knit this cuff. How did I knit it? I knitted 1 knit stitch through the front loop. My next stitch was a purl through the back loop, classic, meaning a twisted purl. I knitted for 9 centimeters, with 8 centimeters for the cuff, and added 1 centimeter for the fold. I knitted 22 rows. How to knit this fold? This row ensures that the hat stays well when it is turned. So, I knitted this row, knitting knits over purls, and purls over knits after this fold. I knitted the whole hat in the same way. As I will now knit this hat, I will mark the beginning of the row with a marker. I knit a knit stitch through the back loop. That means it will be a twisted knit. And we will knit the purl through the front loop. But not the granny way from the top. We place it on the needle this way and pull it through the stitch. Why we knit the purl this way? Because if we just knit the purl in the granny way, my pattern, for example, started to slant over time, I unraveled and decided to try knitting this way. A purl through the front loop, and I got a good fabric, nothing slanted. That's why I recommend knitting the purl this way. In the first row, it's a bit harder. Then it gets easier. I knitted a few rows, and the pattern is already visible. Because we are knitting the knits twisted and the purls ordinary, classically, we have this kind of pattern on the front side. In the form of crossed knit stitches, and on the purl side, we use a regular ribbing, as we knit the purl stitches without crossing. We have a classic knit stitch. It should be knit through the front loop. We are working in the round. However, we knit it through the back loop as a knit stitch. And we knit the purl stitches through the front loop. By placing the yarn on the right needle, we will continue to knit this way until we reach the desired height before our decreases. I knitted about 14 centimeters, a little more, and this resulted in 37 rows. In the last 37th row, I placed markers. I took 3 stitches, knit, purl, knit, and marked these 3 stitches with a marker. I did this 4 times, at equal intervals of stitches. Here, we calculated that these 3 stitches would be spaced 25 stitches apart. Additionally, I marked everything here, and now we begin to shape the crown. By the way, in this hat before the decreases, I knitted 16.5 centimeters or 40 rows after the fold, then started to decrease. At the start of my row, I simply knit. Also following the pattern, we knit a knit stitch, a purl, and a knit, and after my first line, yes, of 3 stitches. Here, we will make a decrease. How will we do it? We need to make a right-leaning decrease, tilting it to the right. Let's look at this pattern. For the decrease, we have 2 stitches, so we take these 2 stitches and check our third. The third one is a purl. Therefore, from these 2 stitches, we need to make a knit stitch, so that we alternate. Here is the knit, and the third is a purl. And the next one should be a knit stitch again. Thus, we need to knit the knit with a right tilt. We have here a knit and purl stitch. Therefore, I will knit them together through the front loop. Here, we made a right-leaning decrease. Let's continue knitting according to the pattern. To the next seam, I have knitted to the next markers of my seam of 3 stitches. Here's a knit, a purl knit. I stopped 3 stitches short, and see, here I have a knit, then a purl, and 2 stitches to decrease. After the purl stitch, here's the third. I need to get 1 knit from these 2 stitches. In principle, one can remember that if we had a knit done there, then throughout the row we will be making decreases as knits. So, let's knit the third. From the markers, and from these 2, make 1 knit, so we slip the first knit. We slip it just like we knit, and the purl stitch. We knit as a purl, then we pull the slipped knit over the knitted purl. We got a left-leaning knit. This time, we need to lean the stitch to the left since our seam of 3 stitches is on the left. That's it. Now let's knit the next 3 stitches that we highlighted. According to the pattern, after our 3 stitches, we knit again. A decrease, the third stitch is a purl. So, we need to take these 2 and get 1 knit. Just like at the beginning of the row, we knit these 2 stitches together through the front loop. Then, we will have a right-leaning knit. We knitted the knit, now we continue knitting the pattern to our next markers. We knitted to our next seam, a knit and purl knit. Here are 3 stitches. My stitch is a purl. And so, I need to get a knit from these 2 accordingly. Since this is a purl, we slip the knit. We knit the purl as a purl and pull the slipped stitch over the knitted purl. It turned out the face stitch is slanted to the left. That is, it is slanted toward the seam, just like we did last time. Next, our little seam is a face stitch. Face stitch. And after the seam, we also make a decrease. But now it will slant to the right, since all decreases go toward our seam. Toward these 3 stitches, we look at the purl stitch. From these 2, we need to make a face stitch slanted toward these 3 stitches, toward the seam. As we did, 2 stitches knit together through the front loop. All decreased and we knit according to the pattern until the next seam, until the next 3 stitches, and make decreases, a face stitch slanted to the left, a face stitch slanted to the right. And at the end of our row, we also need to make a decrease slanted to the left. There is a seam. Throughout the entire row, we make decreases slanting to the right and slanting to the left, starting our row. Decreases will occur in every row. I want the decrease to be sharp. The crown closes sharply. Therefore, in every row, I will have 8 decreases in the next rows. We also check from our seam after 3 stitches. We have the third from here. 1, 2, 3. From these 2, we need to make 1 purl. A purl slanted to the right, wide to the right. Here we have these 3 highlighted stitches. I knit these 2 through the front loop as a purl. My purl turned out to be a face stitch, following the pattern until the next markers. 3 remain until these 3. My third stitch is a face stitch. I knit it as a face stitch. The last 2 should be knitted through 1 to get a purl. The last was a face stitch. Knit the purl slanted to the left. We slip the purl stitch and knit the next one as usual through the back loop. Then, we place the slipped purl stitch over the knitted one. Those that we highlighted, knit, purl, knit. Knit. These highlighted stitches between the markers will consistently be knit and purl. Knit, regardless of what we have here. Stitch. We found out that in the row, purl stitches will be knitted on decreases. Therefore, after these 3 highlighted stitches, we need to purl with a right-leaning decrease. Just as we knitted at the beginning, we knit 2 together purlwise through the front loop. We continue according to the pattern. To the next ones, we will also make decreases. Before these 3 stitches, we will make a left-leaning decrease by knitting purlwise. And after the markers, we knitted those 2 decreases with a right-leaning style. So we knit the second row. And the third, we have decreases in every row, without stitches. The highlighted stitches we knit independently of all others as usual. Knit and purl, knit. Alternately the first and second rows. This is my third row. Therefore, I will knit it as the first. There will be knit stitches as a result of the decreases. Thus, we will alternate the rows in odd do. And right, the slant moves toward our seam of 3 stitches. Alternate until there are 24 stitches left on the needles. Between seams and 3 stitches on each seam. We will meet there to see what we will do next. It took 11 rows for the decreases, and we make the reduction. And now I have 3 stitches left for the stripe. Next, 3 stitches between the stripes, 3 stitches for the stripe, and so on. 3 stitches result between my stripes here on the side. I knit. According to the pattern, I decrease the face. And here we already have those 3 loops between the stripes. We will decrease so that only 1 remains. Here, we need to knit the first face together with this face that belongs to our seam. I remove the marker. This stitch we do not knit. I will knit the seam stitch together with these two face stitches. Here goes the face. Through the back loop, this stitch is from my seam, and this is the stitch that is between the seams. I knit the two faces together through the back loop. And this stitch results, which is from the seam. It is somewhat on top, and it turns out it goes on top. Here I place a marker. Between our stripes, there are two stitches left. I knit the middle stitch, the purl, as a purl. And the one that remains we will decrease. Between our stripes, one has remained. We will remove this now. We will knit it together with the first. I remove the marker, and now I knit these two stitches as a face through the front loop. Here we should have a marker. And this stitch, which we refer to the stitch of our next stripe. As usual, our stripe remains. We knit the purl and the next face stitch together with the one between the seams. We will knit together. We will remove the marker. We will knit them together through the back loop. The stripes, after our seam, we knit together. The face, through the back loop. This, the stitches. Next, we place the marker. As usual, the purl stitch, which we have between the stripes. And the next one we knit with the first one from our third. We knit through the front loop and so on. You understand? As a result, the stripes remain unchanged stitches. It turns out one purl stitch. Finished in a row, we already have 16 stitches on the needles. Stitches can be tightened. Therefore, I knit the next row according to the pattern. Here the ribbing one by one has already emerged. Purl knit. I will, as usual, knit the knits through the back loop and the purl. We have been knitting all the time. A whole row of ribbing. Markers, and then I will tighten the hat. If you have too many stitches, or 16 is also too many for you. It can be tightened. I'll make decreases from every 2. Knit 1, I knitted this row, cut the yarn, and threaded it into the needle. The thread comes out, and I simply transfer all 16 stitches onto the thread. We remove the needles. Here is the crown. We tighten it. Just don't pull the thread too hard here, so it doesn't break, because that will be very bad later. Tightened. I will now go under the stitches several times. In a circle, I will bring the thread to the purl side and secure it. We ended up with a cross-shaped crown. Highlight the thread 4 seams of 3 and 6, for example. A little differently we closed our hat. I hid all the threads. Now it needs to be washed and dried. In this cap, I use 13 rows for the decreases, which is about 5.5 centimeters. Here, I knitted a slightly elongated crown. I had 8 decrease rows every other row. I also knitted 4 rows with decreases in each row. And in the last row, I made sure my ribbing was 1 by 1. I knitted the last 13th row just like the penultimate row of my husband's cap. I did not knit the last row of the cap in regular ribbing, but gathered the crown. I achieved. One by one, the height of the cap turned out to be 22 centimeters, and it took 110 grams. We ended up with a cap. The height is 18 centimeters, I hope. You managed to do everything, you handled all the calculations. If not, feel free to ask questions in the comments. Please like to not miss the upcoming masterclasses. I wish you easy stitches and see you soon.